We often think of Moses as this legendary, larger-than-life figure, parting the Red Sea, getting the Ten Commandments, leading his people to freedom. It all sounds pretty epic, right? But if you actually stop and think about it, being Moses must have absolutely sucked. I mean, really, really sucked. Let's break it down. First off, his origin story is straight out of a horror movie. He's born into slavery, and the king Pharaoh orders all Hebrew baby boys to be killed. His mom has to hide him in a basket and float him down the Nile River. Can you imagine the sheer terror? He's saved by Pharaoh's daughter, which sounds great, but now he's a Hebrew kid growing up in the very palace of the guy who wants his people dead. Talk about an identity crisis. He's living a lie, caught between two worlds, not truly belonging to either. Then comes the call to action. He sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, and in a moment of rage, he kills the Egyptian. Panic sets in. He has to flee for his life, and he ends up as a shepherd in the middle of nowhere for 40 years. 40 years. That's an entire career. He gets married, has kids, settles into a quiet, anonymous life. He's probably thinking, okay, I escaped. I'm safe now. But nope. God shows up in a burning bush and says, hey, remember that life you fled? I need you to go back and confront the most powerful man in the world, your adoptive brother figure, and tell him to let all his free labor go. Moses is understandably not thrilled. He gives God 5 different excuses. Who am I to do this? What's your name? They won't believe me. I'm not a good speaker. Just send someone else. You can feel the desperation. He does not want this job, but God isn't taking no for an answer. So Moses goes back to Egypt with his brother Aaron. And what happens? Pharaoh, of course, says no. And not just no, but he makes the slaves' lives even harder. So now, not only does Pharaoh hate him, but his own people, the very people he's trying to save, turn on him. They're like, thanks a lot, Moses. Things were awful before, but now you've made them unbearable. Why couldn't you just leave us alone? Imagine the crushing weight of that. You're trying to liberate people, and they blame you for their increased suffering. Then we get the 10 plagues. Frogs, locusts, boils, rivers of blood, ... It's a non-stop horror show. Egypt is getting decimated, and Moses is the one who has to keep going back to Pharaoh, delivering these terrible warnings. Each time, he probably hoped Pharaoh would just give in, but no. It's a brutal cycle of hope and disappointment, all while living in a land that's literally falling apart around him. Finally, after the 10th horrifying plague, Pharaoh lets them go. Victory, right? Wrong. They get to the Red Sea, and guess who's coming up behind them with 600 chariots? Pharaoh and his army, having changed their minds. So now Moses is trapped. He has an entire nation of terrified people behind him screaming, "We told you this was a bad idea. We're all going to die." And an angry army in front of him. The pressure is astronomical. He parts the Red Sea, they cross, and the army drowns. It's a huge miracle, but can you even imagine the stress of that moment? And that's just the beginning of the real nightmare, the 40 years in the desert. You'd think after seeing the Red Sea part, that people would have a little faith. Nope, not even a little. It's a constant stream of complaints. We have no water. We have no food. We're sick of this manna stuff. We want meat. We were better off as slaves in Egypt, where at least we had cucumbers. They are the worst road trip companions in history. At one point, Moses goes up a mountain for 40 days to get the 10 commandments from God. He comes back down, tablets in hand, ready to establish some law and order. And what does he find? His people, led by his own brother Aaron, are having a rave party, worshiping a giant golden calf they just made. After everything they've seen, they've already given up and turned to idolatry. Moses is so furious, he smashes the stone tablets. He has to go back up the mountain and get a second set. It's the ultimate "are you kidding me?" moment. For 40 years, he deals with this. Rebellion after rebellion. He has to mediate their disputes, listen to their whining, and constantly beg God not to just wipe them all out. His own siblings, Aaron and Miriam, challenge his authority. He leads them to the edge of the promised land. They send in spies, and the people get scared and refuse to go in. As a punishment, God declares that this entire generation will wander the desert until they die and never enter the land. And the final, most tragic part? After all of that, the river, the palace, the desert, the plagues, the complaining, the rebellions, after 40 years of thankless, soul-crushing leadership, Moses himself is not allowed to enter the promised land because of one single moment of frustration where he struck a rock for water instead of speaking to it as God commanded. He is denied the final reward. He's allowed to see it from a mountaintop. This land he's dedicated his entire life to reaching, but he can't set foot in it. He dies there in the wilderness with his life's work fulfilled for everyone but himself. So next time you hear the story of Moses, remember the other side of it. He wasn't just a hero. He was a deeply human, frustrated, and burdened man who was given an impossible task and saw it through, despite the immense personal cost. It was a life of service and sacrifice. But man, it really, really sucked to be Moses. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this different perspective, make sure to like and subscribe for more.